What's up, everybody? Following the Packers' victory, I'm back fresh off the watch party, but it's time to just give some quick thoughts on the Green Bay Packers' victory over the Indianapolis Colts in Week 2. Ultimately, the final score wound up at 16-10, and I think a lot of us watching the game know that it could have been more on the Packers' side, and also with how anxiety-riddled it got there at the end, it could have been worse for the Packers, but nonetheless, we ended kind of right in the middle at 16-10 with the Packers getting the victory over the Colts. Before I dive into box scores or anything to that effect, I guess my overall thoughts from this game, before I hear from you folks out there, would be they did what they had to do, right? The defense, with an overwhelmingly great performance, coming up with multiple turnovers against the Colts, doing what they needed to do against Richardson. The one play off the top of my head, especially where Eric Wilson was not fooled at all by an option that the Colts were attempting to do, reading it and executing it to perfection. What a great play by Eric Wilson. And then there were other plays as well. Xavier McKinney being in the right spot for an interception again. Evan Williams making sure that no Colt was going to get that Hail Mary attempt at the very end. This was a very strong performance for Jeff Hafley's new defense. Even if it didn't come up with sack after sack after sack or anything to that effect, no, the defense did its job everywhere else. And offensively, speaking of doing their job, again, they did what needed to be done. Josh Jacobs carrying the vast majority of the load. As for Jayden Reed, started out, it looked like the entire game was going to be Jayden Reed and Josh Jacobs. And then as the game wore on, it was more Jacobs, less Reed as he started getting the ball less and less. And I do have to wonder if the calf and shin injury that Jayden Reed entered the game as questionable with had anything to do with that. Can't be certain. But one last person that deserves a lot of shout outs for their performance in this game. And of course, I'm going to be talking about this a lot more when we get to actual shout outs and get outs tomorrow. But how about Malik Willis? This final stat line, 12 of 14, 122 yards, 1 touchdown, adding in 41 yards on the ground as well. Hyper efficient. We did see it. The one time that they actually tried to air the ball out down the field, Romeo Doubs made a fantastic adjustment, made a great catch in traffic. And Malik Willis, at least collegiately, was known as having a very strong arm. He was kind of an Anthony Richardson type, just not quite as athletic, but a very big arm, highly mobile. They let him go down the field once, and it wasn't exactly the most perfect throw in the world. Kind of a lame duck to Romeo Doubs, who then adjusted beautifully, got the catch when the Packers really needed something to click offensively. But that kind of showed you right there. Okay, that's why the Packers aren't playing any long game with Malik Willis in right now. But it's a good thing they didn't ask him to do that too much. I do think LaFleur could have asked for it at least a little bit more, because there was certainly a stretch there in the second half where the Colts were just saying, all right, screw it. We're going to stop the run. We don't even care. We're not going to honor the pass. We are going to swarm. We're tired of Jacobs getting 7 carries a game or 7 yards a carry and you giving it to him 30 times. So we're going to stop this. Okay, fine. But then that's when the Packers really needed to adjust. And then the other thing, just on the negative side, of course, I'll be talking about this more tomorrow too, before we get to the actual box score, the penalties in the first quarter really cost the Packers. Josh Jacobs, there is no excuse to fumble the ball at the 1 yard line. That should have been a touchdown. So there were some kind of self-implosion mistakes from the Packers. It was not a perfect game, but it was enough. And the Packers now sit at 1-1. Big Al, what you got? Saying Josh Jacobs is the first running back to have 30-plus carries since Amon Green and Ryan Grant. A true workhorse back. Wow. I mean, that is kind of wild. Like, that's not how Green Bay uses their running backs ever since Amon Green and Ryan Grant's good evidence of that, right? And plus, too, especially LaFleur, that is not how he uses his running backs. You got to wonder whether Marshawn Lloyd's hamstring has anything to do with that, if he's not at a full 100%. So let's go to the box score. Let's see exactly what we've got here now. Let's see, maybe adjust this here for you. You can see a little bit more of it. So Anthony Richardson on the Colts side, we'll start with them. Started the game 17 of 33, 204 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, got sacked once for a loss of 6. Jonathan Taylor, 12 carries. This was a strong performance by Taylor. 12 carries, 103 yards with a long of 29. One thing that the Packers defense did an incredibly nice job of is that first half time of possession. I don't have the numbers here, but they were showing them on the telecast repeatedly. It was something like 23 minutes at one point for the Packers versus 6 for the Colts. In a game when you don't have Jordan Love, in a game where you've got to run the ball successfully, you can't ask for much more than that kind of rate of time of possession. Now, it did get evened out a little bit more in the second half, but still, that's what they needed to have in the first half, and it worked. And that's part of the reason Jonathan Taylor, in spite of running the ball well, wound up with only 12 carries. Richardson, for what it's worth, added 4 carries for 37. Alec Pierce was the Colts' big receiver on the day, 5 for 56 and 1 touchdown. Of course, he, on that touchdown, did get behind the coverage from Keyshawn Nixon. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about that a little bit. But Nixon stayed up close to the line. I don't know if that was his exact zone responsibility or whether he was supposed to taper back a little bit. Well, Pierce snuck behind him and had a wide open touchdown to get the Colts up to 10. That would be the touchdown there in the box score. Their other receiver, 2 for 32 from Jonathan Taylor. Now, they did also have a couple big drops, but also should be noted, I talked about how Pittman is more possession than ever when Richardson is in at quarterback. Last week, 4 catches, 31 yards. This week, 3 catches, 21 yards for Michael Pittman Jr. To limit their number one to that kind of output is a great sign for the Packers defense. By the way, if you were at the watch party, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but I did talk a couple times about Carrington Valentine being in the game seemingly over Eric Stokes. We didn't see any type of injury news about Eric Stokes. We didn't see anything like that. So I have a couple thoughts here. One, that means either Valentine has surpassed Stokes on the depth chart, is now the starting corner opposite Jair. Or, now for this theory a few times, is it because Valentine is known as a little bit better in run than Stokes? And because of the type of man corner that Valentine is. Now, Valentine and Stokes, they're both man corners. But Valentine is much more your press jam corner, whereas Stokes is much more of a sticky down the field corner. Maybe they wanted the press jam in today. Ed, what you got? Hey, Ed. The O-line and D were excellent today. I know the Colts aren't great against the run, but to go for over 200 yards running when they know you want to run, it is impressive. You know, Ed, I was one of the people saying that the Colts are going to tee off on the run. They're not going to care about Malik Willis's arm. They're going to go for the run and only the run. And that should get better results than they had last week against Houston, where they didn't care about the run at all. I think at this point, we just have to say that the Colts' run defense is just bad. And much to the benefit of the Packers. I was surprised the Packers just ran it as often as they did, especially with Jacobs getting 32 carries. Like Big Al pointed out, it's been a long time since we've seen a Green Bay running back notch over 30 carries. They just kept on riding, and it worked. So then just taking a look at some other stuff here, looking at the Packer side of things, Malik Willis, 12 of 14, 122, 1. Hyper efficient. Most of those completions, I'm super excited to go dive into like some of the advanced numbers. I have a feeling, 10 of those 12 completions, 9 of those 10 completions were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Let's say 5 of those completions were behind the line. Someone in the watch party said reminiscent of Jimmy Garoppolo in the NFC Championship a couple years ago. Yeah, can't really dispute that. And then Josh Jacobs, 32 carries, 151 yards. Really, the only flaw for Josh Jacobs today at all was that fumble that had no business being a fumble. Very, very encouraging to see. And who on their bingo card had the fact that Malik Willis with his 6 carries would garner more yards on the ground than Anthony Richardson? The Packers for years have not been able to stop running quarterbacks. They go against one of the best in the league right now to the tune of 437. Malik Willis, the Packers' own running quarterback, winds up being more successful. 6 carries for 41 yards for Malik Willis. Also, Jaden Reed knocked in 2 for 37. And this is where it gets kind of interesting with Jaden Reed. He only touched the ball 4 times. It felt like a lot more than that in the first couple quarters, and then he really disappeared. 2 catches, 9 yards for Jaden Reed. Luke Musgrave certainly didn't do much in this game, 1 for 6. Romeo Doubs with his 39-yard reception from Malik Willis on not a great throw with a beautiful adjustment in the air, 3 for 62 for Romeo Doubs. But notice, 3 for 62 on 3 targets. Great to see. Dontavian Wicks, 326 and the 1 touchdown. But the 1 target to Wicks was the play, like you can argue it was a drop. You can argue it just wasn't, like the contact was already there. I'd get it either way. Dontavian Wicks for 3 for 26. Then one guy who does deserve a little bit of scolding, That would be Quay Walker. 6 tackles total, yes, but also dropped what surely would have been the game-winning interception. Just did not work out that way. So there you have it. That is the game in a nutshell. I'm going to be back on Monday with your shout-outs and get-outs. The big message here, and this is like the quick thoughts of the day. They did what they had to do. Malik Willis, you hate to set this bar, right? But it's the reality. Malik Willis didn't screw it up. Did what he had to do. He was hyper efficient. He did what they asked him to do and didn't try to do anything more than that. It's great. Deserves credit. Josh Jacobs, in spite of the fumble, was the engine for the entirety of the offense and the defense. What a performance by Green Bay's defense today. Ed Mann said, good point, 2 mobile QBs that they've held in check. Yes, it's 2 weeks in a row. They've not allowed a running quarterback to beat them. So, all right, everybody, I'll be back tomorrow with shout-outs and get-outs, and then we follow just a regular week. But it is time for me to get on out of here. Do hope you had a fantastic time watching the game. I'll be back tomorrow, and as always, go Pack Go.